Steady. Hello friends, good morning. Good morning. How are you all? It's going nice. I hope you are practicing the questions, right? Okay, so if you have solved the first chapter question which we completed yesterday, so you might have realized that all the questions are theoretical, and that's why we have completed the entire chapter with the theory only. Okay, so let's move for the next chapter. Just wait for the other students also. Please share the link so that more students can come to this channel, right? And ask your friends to join this video so that we can have a good interactive session. Yes, please share the video. Please share the link with your friends. Please share fast. I hope many people are getting joined with this. See, if you want to make the session interactive, ask your friends to come. Don't just be selfish that I am going to learn, right? You can learn with the competition. The more the competition will be there, the more you are going to learn. Okay, so try to make this a competitive environment so that it will be a fun learning rather than just learning. I want to make this learning as a fun. Okay, so for referral you can use my code BHAR10 for subscription. Okay, so let's start. Just a minute. Yeah, so we are moving to the second chapter, that is simple stress. Okay, so in the strength of material, there are various kind of like simple stress, then your compound is, that means complex stress. So first of all we are going to understand what is the simple stress. Simple stress, or simply I'm saying as a stress. Okay, simple stress, or simply I'm saying as a stress. So for understanding the stress, first of all we want to have a healthy discussion with you. Can anyone tell me what is the difference between stress, pressure and strength? Stress, pressure and strength. Is there anyone here who can explain me the difference between these three terms? Stress, pressure and strength. Can you tell me the difference between these three terms? That what is stress, what is pressure, what is strength? What is stress, what is pressure, what is strength? Come on. What is stress, what is pressure, what is strength? Yes? Is there anyone who can tell me the difference between all three? What is stress? What is pressure? What is strength? Okay, just give me one answer. Will all the three terms will have the same unit? Will all the three terms will have the same unit? Yes or no? Will all the three terms will have the same unit? Yes or no? Yes, but these are different in terms of definition, right? So first of all I'm going to talk about pressure. I'm going to talk about pressure. So what is the pressure? See, when I say pressure, the pressure is acting on any body. The pressure is acting on any body when you apply a external normal load, right? If you apply an inclined load, then the normal component only can apply the pressure. For example, bring your fingers at the chin, at your mouth, at your skin surface, okay, and try to apply the pressure. You can feel the pressure, right? But if you make it inclined, you can see the pressure is decreasing, right? Because the normal component of the force, that is the direction of force perpendicular to the skin surface, can only apply the pressure. Getting the point? And if I say this is area, right? So if I say the force is F, we say the force is F, then what is pressure? What is pressure? This pressure is nothing but equal to F by A. So what is pressure? It is the external force per unit area. It is the external force per unit area, and that to external normal force. What I am writing? It is external normal force acting per unit area of the member. Is it clear? So that is your pressure. Okay. Next, I am going to talk about stress. So what is stress? So try to understand. When you apply pressure on a deformable body, when you apply pressure on a deformable body, the body is subjected to deformation. The body is subjected to deformation. Let us say the deformation is delta. Okay. And to resist this deformation, the resistance is developed at the cross section, at the different cross section. You can see the resistance. Okay. So if I cut this cross section, what I can see, since generally the material is not isotropic, it is anisotropic, what I can see, the different molecule will have the different resisting capacity. The different molecule will have different resisting capacity. Is it clear? So this internal resistance that is developed to resist the deformation produced due to externally applied load is referred as stress. Is it clear? Is it clear? So what is stress? What is stress? It is the internal resistance developed in the deformable body, due to externally applied load producing deformation. Okay. So it is external developed in the deformed body due to externally applied load producing deformation. So this externally applied load is producing deformation, due to which the internal resistance is developed. Okay. So this is referred as stress. Is it clear? Definition, is it clear? Okay. Now, if I look at the cross section which I have seen, I can see that different points are subjected to different amount of resistance. Is it clear? So, is it possible to go at each and every molecule and determine what is the stress? No, it is not possible. So, what we do, we consider the average stress for the entire cross section. We consider the average stress for the entire cross section. Is it clear? Now one thing that you should be very clear, that strength of material is studied for equilibrium object. It is not studied for non-equilibrium object. It is studied for equilibrium object. So if the subject is studied for equilibrium object, then try to understand. If I say, if I am applying the load of F, okay, then resistance you can see. So what you are going to see that at any section, if I cut, what I can see, I apply the force F, the resistance is there. So if the resistance is there, the resistance will be in the opposite direction. And since I am saying as average stress, then that means that average stress will be exactly balancing the load, that is the pressure that is acting from the outer. So this sigma average must be equal to the external pressure, and that must be equal to F by A. Is it clear? So from now on, one thing that you should be very clear, that we are going to consider the average stress for the analysis. Is it clear? Is it clear? Yes or no? So that is your average stress. So from here, you got to know two things, that stress that you are going to consider in the analysis is average, and that too, it is engineering stress. It is engineering stress. Yes or no? Stress is average and engineering. Not true, not at a point. Yes or no? So that is average and engineering stress. Okay. One more point in the stress. Tell me, which arises first? Strain or stress? Strain or stress? Due to strain, stress is generated, or due to stress, strain is generated? Yes? Due to strain, stress is generated, or due to stress, strain is generated? Which arrived earlier, strain or stress? See, try to understand, if the deformation is not there, you cannot see the resistance in the body. So the deformation is what? Strain, and the resistance is what? Stress. Yes. So without strain, you cannot see any stress. Is it clear? That's why in a rigid body, which cannot deform, you cannot define stress for a rigid body. Is it clear? The stress term is defined only for deformable body. Okay. So we are writing here that strain is the reason for stress. Strain is the reason for stress, or strain is the cause of stress. Is it clear? Is this point clear? Yes or no? So stress that you are considering is the average engineering stress. It is the internal resistance developed in the body in order to resist the deformation produced by the externally applied load. Is it clear? Is it clear? Okay. Okay. So next I am going to talk about strength. So first of all, you should understand that what is strength? It is a material property. And if it is a material property, it is constant for a given material. It is constant for given material. Yes or no? It is constant for given material. Okay. It is constant for given material. So if it is constant for a given material, that means its value is fixed. Yes or no? जैसे where you say Fe 250, Fe 415, Fe 500. So it has a definite strength. You are studying RCC also along with this. So sir might have told you about this also. Yes. So strength is fixed for a material. It does not vary. Okay. So what is strength? The maximum value of stress which a material can withstand without failure is its strength. Right. So what is strength? Maximum value of stress which a material can withstand without failure. Okay, without failure. That is the strength. Next, what we can say? It is independent of load applied and cross-sectional area. You can say that it is independent of load applied and cross-sectional area. Got the point? Got the point? So I hope you understood the difference between the pressure, stress and strength. Pressure, stress and strength. Is it clear? Is it clear? If I say pressure, so what is a pressure? It is the external load, external normal load per unit area of the member. Stress is the internal resistance which is developed in the deformable body due to the deformation produced by the externally applied load. Okay. And the stress that we are going to consider is the average stress. And since you already studied earlier that we are going to consider the engineering, since we are considering the initial area, we are saying that the stress is average engineering stress. Next, we are saying that strain is the cause of stress. Why I am saying strain is the cause of stress? Because first of all, the deformation is induced, and to resist that deformation, internal resistance is developed, right? That's why I'm saying that due to strain, stress is generated. Is it clear? And the last, that is strength. That is the maximum value of stress is the strength, and it is independent of the load applied and cross-sectional area. It is a fixed quantity for a particular material. Yes. Is it clear? Okay. Okay then. See now. So next is classification of stress. Classification of stress. Classification of stress. Okay. So I'm going to classify the stress. What can be the different forms of the stress? See, what I am going to give you here is just overview. Entire SOM is based on this stress only. Okay. So just an overview. Okay. So if you didn't understood any part, not an issue. We can cover it further. Okay. So this stress can be basically of two types. One is your normal stress, and other is your shear stress. So if I talk about normal stress, what is normal stress? Suppose this is a body. So on this body, the load is acting in the normal direction. Normal means perpendicular to the cross-sectional area. So normal stress means perpendicular to cross-sectional area. That is your normal stress. Okay. And what is shear stress? What is shear stress? The stress is acting tangential to the surface. The stress is acting tangential to the surface. The stress is acting tangential to the surface. That is your shear stress. So what I am writing here, the stress is tangential to the cross-sectional area. Tangential to the cross-sectional area. Okay. Now see, This normal stress is further divided into two parts. Acha, I've seen a comment yesterday. Someone was saying, sir, from where you have studied, this is your profession and something like that. I'm not going to entertain that part, because the reason means, see here, you are here to get the knowledge, you are here to understand. Okay, it is irrespective that from where I get my knowledge or something. Okay, what I am concerned is whether I'm able to explain everything to you or not. Yes, if I'm able to do that, I think my work is done, right? I'm satisfying my students regarding their knowledge. Okay, so that's okay for me, it's not a big deal, right? But you should understand that you are here to get the knowledge, right? You are here to get the knowledge. So more you enhance with your knowledge, it would be better for you. Okay, so normal stress, if I'm saying, so it is of two parts, right? One is your direct normal stress, direct normal stress, and second is your indirect normal stress, or bending stress, or flexural stress. All are same, or flexural stress. Okay, so we'll look at this both one by one. So first of all, let us talk about direct normal stress. So direct normal stress means what? The stress is directly acting on the surface. Okay, so this consists of two parts. One is tension and other is compression. One is tension, other is compression. So in tension, what you can see, there is a bar. I already told you what is bar. The member subjected to the normal forces are bar. So it is subjected to tension, right? So why I am drawing this diagram, I want to show you the nature of the stress. What is the nature of the stress at any section? Because it is an internal resistance. So we know that if I take this section of T, force is T, so the resistance will be in the opposite direction because it will be in equilibrium. And if the cross section area is A, then this sigma average will be equal to P by A, and you can see that this average value is same throughout the cross section. So we say this as, this is your sigma average variation. This is your sigma average variation. So we say that the stress variation, or we can say this as stress remains constant. Stress remains constant throughout the section. Is it clear? So that is your tension. Okay. Now similarly, if I look at the compression part, so if I'm taking a bar and applying the compression on this, then if I take any section, what we can understand from this, that if I'm applying a compression, then the resistance will develop in the opposite direction for the body to be in equilibrium. So this is sigma average, and that is equal to C by A, that is externally applied pressure. Yes. And if I look at the variation, then again the variation is what? Constant. It will remain constant throughout the cross section. Yes or no? This is sigma average variation. So whether you take direct tension or direct compression, the stress remains constant throughout the cross section because we are considering the average stress. Is it clear? Okay. Now next part. See, Next part, I'm making a separation so that you should not get confused. Okay, so indirect normal stress, name itself indicate that normal stress is not applied directly, but it is developing indirectly due to some loading. Okay, so suppose this is the two sections of a particular beam at which there is applied moment M and there is a resisting moment of M dash. This is applied moment, okay, and M dash is your resisting moment. So because of which I will explain this when I will teach in the bending chapter. Okay, so because of this, what will happen? The member will bend, and due to the bend, what you can see above the neutral axis, in this case, you can see the fibers are subjected to compression, and below the fibers are subjected to tension. Similarly, at the other side also, resistance is there. Okay, so why I am drawing this diagram? Just to show one thing, that you can see the stress is acting normal to the surface. So it is a normal force that is developing indirectly, and the variation is what? Linear. The variation is linear. The variation is linear. Is linear at the cross section. Is it clear? The variation is linear at the cross section. Okay. Above, if it's compression, then bottom it is tension. If bottom it is tension, then above it is compression. Okay. So that is about normal stress. Now coming to the next, that is shear stress. Then shear stress is again further classified into two parts. One is direct shear stress. This we'll study in the shear chapter. And other is indirect shear stress or torsional stress So I'm talking about direct shear stress or indirect shear stress or torsional stress. So direct shear stress we'll study in the shear chapter, and the second itself name indicate that we'll study in the torsion chapter. Okay, so direct shear means the shear you can see directly acting on a section of a beam. It is directly acting. So I'm just drawing the equilibrium structure for the shear. Okay, why this shape? We'll explain this. And if I look at any cross section, I will be telling you that the variation is parabolic. You can see the parabolic shear stress variation. You can see parabolic shear stress variation. You can see the parabolic shear stress variation. Okay. Next, we are talking about the indirect shear stress. Okay, so what is indirect shear stress? Try to understand what is indirect shear stress. So when any particular shaft is subjected to externally applied torque, okay, so due to this will twist about its cross section. This particular bar will twist about its cross section. Okay, so due to this twisting of the bar about its cross section, the shear will develop at the cross section, and the variation is linear. Again, why it is linear? We will be dealing in the torsion chapter. This is just an overview. Okay, we will be using this further. So the maximum shear you can see at the surface of the shaft. Okay, so that is your shear variation, right? So see here in this stress part, I've just given you the overview. Okay, this is just the overview, right? I'm going to go in complete detail of each and every part so that any problem that you feel will not be there in the further part. Okay, so just have a look on this, have a look at this, just have a look at this, just have a look at this. Yes, is it clear? Is it clear? Any doubt? Any doubt in the classification of stress? Any doubt in the classification of stress? Is it clear? Okay. So now we are moving to the next part, that is stress tensor. Stress tensor. Stress tensor. Okay. Stress tensor. So what is stress tensor? Can anyone tell me what is stress tensor? Can anyone tell me what is stress tensor? Yes. What is stress tensor? Do you know? Do anyone know about this part? What is stress tensor? What is this stress tensor? What is stress tensor matrix? Can anyone give me the example? Can anyone give me the example? Yes. Tell me. Tell me. Anyone? What is stress tensor? Okay. So just try to understand. Just try to understand what is stress tensor. First of all, try to understand what is tensor quantity. What is tensor quantity? What is tensor quantity? So what is tensor quantity? A quantity which has one magnitude and two direction is referred as tensor quantity. Right? A quantity which has one magnitude and two direction is referred as tensor quantity. Okay. So what is tensor quantity? A quantity which has one magnitude and two direction What is the example? What are the examples? Stress, strain, okay, moment of inertia, all these are what? Tensor quantity. Okay, it required two direction to specify, right? So stress, strain, moment of all these are tensor quantity. Okay, next, what is vector quantity? Vector quantity. Okay, before moving to the vector quantity, this tensor quantity has one more name, that is second order tensor quantity. It's mentioned second order tensor quantity. So second order means two direction. Is it clear? Second order means two direction. So that is tensor quantity. Next, what is vector quantity? Vector quantity. What is vector quantity? Yes, everyone know this. What we can say? I'm writing as one magnitude and one direction. One magnitude, one direction. Yes or no? So what are the examples? Examples: force, velocity, acceleration, moment. Yes, all these are vector quantity. Then what we can give another name? First order tensor quantity, because it requires only one magnitude. Right? That is a vector quantity. Now what is a scalar quantity? scalar quantity. What is a scalar quantity? Say, what is a scalar quantity? What is scalar quantity? Requires only one magnitude and no direction. It requires only one magnitude for its definition. Example, right? Speed, then your what? Distance, speed, distance, right, and so on. So this we can write as zero order tensor quantity. Zero order tensor quantity. Is it clear? So now in the stress tensor, before moving to the stress tensor, I'm giving some basic of the tensor quantity. So you understood that stress is a quantity which requires one magnitude and two direction. Okay. So further, before moving to the stress tensor matrix, we are going to study stress representation. Stress representation. Stress representation. Okay. Stress representation. So what is stress representation? See, stress, if I say normal stress is given by sigma, if I talk about shear stress, it will be given by tau. So it is given as sigma ij, right? Sigma ij. So sigma is for normal, I and j denote the direction. Okay, so I denote direction perpendicular to the cross section at which stress is acting. Stress is acting. And J is direction of stress, the direction in which the arrow mark is shown, direction of stress. Okay, direction of stress. For example, if I say this is a structural element and I have shown that this horizontal is X, vertical is Y, and out of the plane is Z. Okay, so I'm taking two force stresses. One is normal, other is shear. Okay, just to let you understand. Okay, so normal means sigma. Okay, so if I'm cutting the plane, what you can see that in this plane, another plane will be formed as this one. Okay, and the third plane will be this. Okay, so what you can say that the plane at which this is the first plane, second and third. So first plane is containing Y and Z direction. Yes or no? So it is ZY plane. It is ZY plane, right? And the perpendicular direction of ZY plane is H, right? The second one is what? The second one is HZ plane, because containing the H and Z direction. HZ plane. So the perpendicular to this is Y. Yes or no? And third is HY plane. And so perpendicular to this is Z direction. Yes or no? Have you understood this point? So if I'm talking about the sigma that is acting at the YZ plane, so I will be what? H, and the direction is also along H, so it becomes sigma HH. Is it clear? It becomes sigma HH. Okay, next. Here, if you look, tau, because it is shear, it is acting tangential to the surface. So it is acting on the HZ plane. Now what is perpendicular to xz plane is nothing but y. Perpendicular to xz plane is nothing but y, and the direction of stress is h, so it becomes tau y h. Is it clear? Is it clear? Okay. Okay. So now we are ready for stress tensor. So now we are ready for stress tensor. We are ready for stress tensor. So what is stress tensor? Stress tensor, it is nothing but the representation of state of stress at a point. If at a point I am going to represent all the stresses, that is my stress tensor. So what is stress tensor? Representation of all the stresses acting at a point is stress tensor. That means you are representing the stresses that are acting at a point, and that is the stress tensor. So now I need to know how we can represent. So see, for representation, we require three mutually perpendicular planes. Now each plane can carry one normal, two shear. What I am saying? See, for representation, what I am saying, we require three mutually perpendicular plane. So this is first plane, second plane, and then third plane. Saying this as horizontal x, vertical y, out of the plane z. Okay, so can you see that all the planes are perpendicular to each other? Yes. So these are mutually perpendicular plane, right? So we require, for representation, we require three mutually perpendicular plane. Now each plane can carry one normal, two shear. How? See, if I look at the YZ plane, this is YZ plane, right? And this is your HZ plane, and the next is your what? This is your XY plane. Okay, so what we know that each plane can carry one normal and two shear. So see how I am saying one normal and two shear. This is one normal acting on the YZ plane and two shear, right? Similarly, XZ plane, one normal, two shear. Similarly, next, one normal, two shear. Getting the point? So you can see each plane can carry one normal and two shear. So total three planes are there. So how many stresses are there? 9. So representation of these 9 stresses in the matrix form is referred as stress tensor matrix. So what I am saying, for representation, three mutually perpendicular planes, are required. Each plane can carry, not necessarily it is carrying, can carry one normal and two shear stress. Okay, so a total of 9 stresses can act at a point, because this element, this diagram you're drawing for a point, right? So the representation of these 9 stresses, in matrix form is referred as stress tensor matrix. Is it clear? It is referred as stress tensor matrix. Got the point? So for matrix representation, first we are going to give the different names. So if it is a normal stress, see, you have seen the stress representation now. In the stress representation, normal is denoted by sigma. I for the direction perpendicular to the cross section at which stress is acting, and J is the direction of stress. Yes. So I'm trying to zoom out. Okay, see here then. So if I give the different name to the stress, this suppose this first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and this is ninth. Okay. So can anyone say what is first? What is second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth? What are the different values? What are the different stress notations? Yes, one. First of all, one is normal. So denoted as sigma. It is acting on the YZ plane. So if it is acting on the YZ plane, the perpendicular direction is X. And what is the direction of stress? Nothing but H. Direction of stress is H. So it becomes sigma HH. Okay. Second, look at the second. It is shear, tau. It is acting on the YZ plane. So perpendicular is H, tau H. Right. And what is the direction? It is Z. Become tau H, Z. Is it clear? Third, that is again shear, tau, acting on the YZ plane. So perpendicular is H. And what is the direction? Direction is Y. Look at the fourth one. Look at the fourth one now. Fourth is normal, right? So it is sigma. Fourth is normal, so it is sigma. It is acting on the HZ plane. So perpendicular direction is Y. And what is the direction of the stress? It is nothing but Y. So we write as sigma Y. Fifth one. See, it is acting, it is shear. So first it is tau. Okay. Then perpendicular is Y and the direction is Z. So it becomes tau Y Z. Sixth is again shear. It is shear. Perpendicular is Y and the direction is H. Got the point? Right. Seven. Look at 7. It is acting on the XY plane and it is shear. So it is tau. Perpendicular direction is Z. And the direction of the stress is Y. So it becomes tau Z Y. Look at the 8th one. It is shear. So it is tau. Perpendicular direction is Z. And the direction is H. Yes. And 9th, it is normal. Direction Z. And direction of stress is also Z. Got the point? Yes or no? Right. So if I represent this here, if I represent this in the matrix form, see, sigma ij, this is equal to, first of all, the stress acting on the yz plane. So what is stress acting on the yz plane? Sigma hx, tau hy, tau hz. Okay, then on the hz plane, so it is tau h, your tau yh, tau yh, then tau, your thereafter you are going to write sigma yy, then tau yz. Next it is tau zh, tau zy, then sigma zz. I'm going to tell you how we are going to write this, how we are writing this. See, first of all, in the first row, perpendicular direction h should be written h h h, then second y y y, and third z z z. Is it clear? Then normal h y z, h y z, then h y z. Is it clear? Now it is hh, so both are hh, that means should be normal. If it is hy or yz or hz, then it will be tau. Here also it will be tau, then sigma, then tau, again tau, again tau, then sigma. Is it clear? So this is the way we write, specifying very clearly. In the first column, first of all, for I we write h, then y, then z, first row, then second row, then third row. Then what we do, we write the normal h y z for the first row, then second, then third. So if it is both I and j are same, it is a normal. If both are different, then it will be shear. Is it clear? So this is the way we write. So this is the way we write. Okay, just for your understanding, how we are going to write, just for your understanding. Okay, so this is your matrix. So this is your matrix. Is it clear? So this becomes your matrix. Now one more thing that I'm going to clear you here. Suppose the right side I'm saying x as positive, upward I'm saying y as positive, and z outward I'm saying as positive. So opposite direction will be taken as negative. So see here, first is positive, right? Second is positive, third is also positive, fifth is positive, fourth is positive, sixth also positive, right? Seventh is negative, eighth is negative, ninth is positive. Got the point? Yes or no? Right? So this is the way we represent the stress tensor, right? This is the way we represent the stress tensor. I hope it is clear. I hope it is clear. Yes. So just have a look. Any problem, please ask. Any problem, please ask. Any problem, please ask in this stress tensor. Any problem, please ask in this stress tensor. Yes? Do you have any problem? Do you have any problem here? Is it clear? Is it clear? Okay. So we'll look at one more thing, that is equality of shear stress. Equality of shear stress. Okay. So first of all, before moving to the equality of shear stress, I am specifying very clearly that you are dealing with the equilibrium body, and if the body is in equilibrium, then net force, if you are talking in the 3D, for equilibrium, if you say, right, So if you're talking in 2D, in 2 dimension for equilibrium body, there are 3 equations that exist. That is, net force along x is equal to 0, net force along y is equal to 0, and summation moment in the z direction is equal to 0. Okay. Now, if I look in 3D, so in 3D, you have 6 equations. What are the 6 equations? Net force along x is equal to 0. Net force along y is equal to 0. Net force along z is equal to 0. Summation moment about x is equal to 0. Summation moment about y is equal to 0. And summation moment about z is equal to 0. So these are the 6 equations in 3D. Okay. And if a body is in equilibrium, then a part of the body or any particular section of the body will be in equilibrium, right? Any particular point also will be in equilibrium. So here we are dealing with a point, and that point must be also in equilibrium, right? So coming to the diagram of the structural element, coming to this diagram of the structural element, suppose this is a structural element, this is perpendicular, right? Here it is sigma yy, sigma hx, okay? Then shear is there. This is tau yx, and on the y z plane it is tau hy, okay? Similarly, if sigma yy is up, it will be also acting at the other end for the equilibrium, right? This is sigma yy, and for sigma hx, another side it will be acting, that is sigma hx, okay? Next, if I talk about sigma zz, then from the other direction also you can see sigma zz, where the line of action will be same, right? Where the line of action will be same, right? So this normal stresses are self-balancing and the line of action is same, so they cannot create any couple, okay? So they cannot create any couple, right? Now if I take any point O, and given the different name A, B, C, D, E, F, okay, with the length of OA I am given as delta X, AB as delta Z, and CD as delta Y, okay? So if I say I want to find the moment about O, in the Z direction, moment about O in the Z direction, right? So that moment in the Z direction from the equilibrium will be equal to 0 due to all the forces, yes or no? That moment will be equal to 0, okay? So sigma hx, sigma yy, sigma zz are self-balancing, yes. This tau xy and tau ix will create the moment about O. Now the question that is frequently asked by the other students are, sir, why not sir, shear in tau yz, right, and shear in tau hz, okay, or shear, okay, these two shear are creating the moment about O. The reason is this is creating the moment about O, but it is not creating in the Z direction. I will explain this. Don't worry. First, let me clear about moment about O in the Z direction. So, any moment you are going to take, that is force into lever arm. You cannot say stress into lever arm. Okay. So, first of all, see, for finding this, I am saying clockwise as positive and anti-clockwise as negative. First of all, forget this part. I will explain this again. Don't worry. Forget this part. Okay. So, I am saying moment about O in the Z direction is equal to 0. Sigma HZ, sigma YY, sigma ZZ are self-balancing, so they cannot create the moment. Okay. Now, summation moment about O in the Z direction. So, this tau HY is creating a anti-clockwise moment and tau YH is creating the clockwise moment. I hope you know the meaning of clockwise or anti-clockwise moment. This is your clockwise moment, clockwise, and opposite is your anti-clockwise moment. Okay. So, I want to find moment about O in the Z direction. So, you can see, use your hand, point of fingers upward, right? That is a Y direction. And seeing the lever arm, rotate your fingers, right? Rotate your fingers. You can see the rotation is in anti-clockwise direction and your thumb will point in the Z direction. Your thumb will point in the Z direction. Okay. Your thumb will point in the Z direction. So, what is the force that is there due to tau HY? Tau HY into area on which it is acting, that is delta Y and delta Y into delta Z. This is the force. It is creating an anti-clockwise moment. So, minus multiply. What is the lever arm? Lever arm means perpendicular distance. The force is acting at the surface ABCD and the point is at O where the distance is delta H. So, lever arm is delta H. Okay. And tau IH is creating a clockwise moment. So, area is tau HY into delta H into delta Z. And what is the lever arm? See, now force is in the H direction, right? Lever arm is downward. So, rotate the fingers. Rotate the fingers. Use right hand rule. Use right hand rule. You can see, rotate the fingers. You can see the clockwise moment. You can see the moment direction. Okay. So, into delta Z, multiply with delta Y. This is equal to 0. Okay. So, from here, what you can see that tau HY into delta H into delta Y into delta Z. This is equal to tau. Okay. One is tau YH. No. Second one is tau YH. Tau YH. Okay. So, tau YH into delta H into delta Y into delta Z. So, this get cancelled out. So, this get cancelled out. This get cancelled out. So, from here, what you can say that tau HY is equal to tau IH. From here, you can say that tau HY is equal to tau IH. Okay. So, now, the question that is used to ask by the student, sir, why not? Why not, sir? This if I take this part, that is tau YZ, okay, and this tau ZY is creating the moment about O in the Z direction. See, if I look at the tau ZY, it is pointing the Y direction, right? It is pointing the Y direction. Okay. So, if it is pointing the Y direction and you can see O, right? So, if you look at the particular lever arm part, or better to say, if I'm just giving overview, that what you can say that the moment that is created by the other particular shear stresses will not be in the Z direction. That will be either in the H direction or it will be either in the Y direction. Is it clear? It will not be in the Z direction. So, this I'm saying as tau HY is equal to tau IH by using summation moment about O in the Z direction. We can say as tau HZ is equal to tau ZH. Similarly, on the same concept, right? Similarly, we can say that tau YZ is equal to tau ZY. Okay. So these are possible only when planes are perpendicular. Only when planes are perpendicular. See, if the planes are not perpendicular, it is not possible that these particular stresses are equal, because lever arm will vary or area will vary. Okay, so it's not possible that these particular three stresses, shear stresses, will be equal. Okay, so one question that is generally asked in the ESE objective is that on what principle the equality of shear stress depends. So you can write that equality of shear stress is based upon moment equilibrium principle. Okay, so we are saying that the equality of shear stress is based upon moment equilibrium principle. Is it clear? So that becomes your objective question. This becomes your objective question in the ESU objective, right? Right. So any doubt, please ask. Okay. So make sure that these are equal only because the planes are perpendicular. If the planes are not perpendicular, right, this equality will not be hold. Is it clear? So let us look at the next part. See, we are not going to study most of the time the triaxial system. Basically, we will always studying the biaxial stress system. Okay, so see here, I'm drawing the complete free body diagram of the biaxial stress system. I'm drawing the complete free body diagram of biaxial stress system. Okay, so if I go for the biaxial stress, okay, biaxial stress, I will be removing the top part. I'm showing you only the XY plane. I'm showing. So on this XY plane, you can see normal stresses. Okay, normal stresses are sigma HX, sigma YY. We can write this normal stress as sigma H also or sigma Y also. Okay, so sigma Y, sigma H. Then I am representing the shear. Tau HY, tau YH. Okay, so upward shear is balanced by the bottom shear, that is tau. Sorry, this is tau HY only, and here the horizontal right is balanced by the horizontal left, that is tau YH. Is it? So this is a complete free body diagram of the biaxial stress system. Okay, this is a complete free body diagram. So now if I want to go for the representation of this stress, that is sigma Ij, this is equal to sigma HH. First H, I part, yes or no? So H and Y, then Y for I, then H and Y. So if the both I and J are equal, so it is normal. If both I and J are different, it is shear. So it's tau, this is sigma. So this is the biaxial stress representation, right? So what we can see that since the planes are perpendicular, this tau HY will be equal to tau IH. So if I define only one particular stress, the other will be automatically defined. Yes or no? So for representation, how many stresses we require? We require 4 stresses. And to define, we require only 3, because if tau HY is defined, tau IH will be defined, or tau IH is defined, then tau HY will be automatically defined. Is it clear? Okay. So that is a biaxial stress. Similarly, if I take a triaxial stress, so in a triaxial stress, what is the matrix? What is the matrix? First I will write H, 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 then Y, 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 Z, 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 then H, Y, Z, H, Y, Z, H, Y, Z. So both are same, it is normal. Both are different, it is tau. Sigma, tau, sigma. Is it clear? So that is triaxial. So for representation, we require 9 elements. And to define how many elements we require? To define only 6 elements are required, because tau HY is defined, tau H will be defined. If tau HZ is defined, then tau ZH will be defined. If tau YZ is defined, then tau ZY will be defined. Is it clear? Right. So this is the way we define the stresses. Got the point? So that is your representation and defining of the elements of the matrix. Is it clear? Is this point clear to all? Yes? Okay. Let's see the next. Deformation. In the bar. Deformation in the bar due to axial load. Deformation in the bar due to axial load. So suppose you have taken a bar and the bar is of length L. The bar is of length L. Okay. It has the initial cross-section area of A. Initial cross-section area of A, and it is subjected to load of P, axial load of P. It is subjected to axial load of P. Okay. So we know that the body is deformable. So if it is deformable, it is going to deform. It is going to deform and will deform from L to L plus delta. Deform to L plus delta, and there is a change in area at the cross section, right? So we know that the load is within the proportionality limit. So Hooke's law is valid. Hooke's law is valid. And if Hooke's law is valid, we know that sigma is directly proportional to epsilon, that is stress is directly proportional to strain. And this further holds the equality with a constant, that is Young's modulus of elasticity, that is E. So sigma barabar E epsilon, right? So from here, stress is what? Load upon initial area, because we are considering the average engineering stress. Yes. What is E? Young's modulus of elasticity. What is epsilon? Change in length upon initial length. So what is change? Delta. What is initial length? L. So from here, what is deformation delta? Nothing but PL upon AE. So this deformation delta is given by the formula PL by AE. So this formula, you think it is very simple, but I will show you how various questions can be framed with this simple formula, right? And if you know the basic, you can solve any number of questions. That's not a problem. Okay, so delta is equal to PL upon AE, right? I hope it is clear. It's very simple derivation. It's not a problem. Okay, that delta is equal to PL upon AE. Now one derivation or 1 to 2 derivation we can see about the deformation formula, that deformation in a rectangular bar due to self weight. Deformation in a rectangular bar due to self weight. I just have a water. Okay. See then. So deformation in a rectangular bar due to self weight. So see, till now I have told you in the assumption that self weight will not be considered. Yes, I have told you that self weight will not be considered. But the question itself say that you need to find the deformation due to self weight. So if it is mentioned in the question that self weight has to be considered, then you will be considering the self weight. Is it clear? So I'm taking a rectangular bar. This rectangular bar is not subjected to any load. It is just hanging from the top. It has a length of L, cross section area of A, okay, and weight density of gamma. What I'm saying? Weight density of gamma, which is defined as rho into G. Okay, so I want to find the deformation. Okay, so first of all, the formula which you find earlier, that is delta is equal to PL upon AE, you should understand that you can apply this formula only when over a length L, this P load A and E is constant. If this is variable, you cannot apply the formula directly, that is delta is equal to PL upon AE. So if you look in this figure, if I look at the bottom part, look at the bottom of this bar. So at the bottom, there is no force to drag it downward, right? If I move bit up, what you can see that the amount of load that is acting from the bottom to stretch is downward is the portion that is beneath that particular section. And as you are moving up, this portion is increasing. That means load is increasing. So over a length L, this load is not constant. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a strip at a distance h of length dx and will assume that the load acting on the strip is constant, right? So what I'm saying, that assume a strip at a distance h from bottom of length dx such that load is constant over the dth length. Okay, so let us first analyze this strip. So the load that is acting on this strip from the bottom, I am saying this as ph. So this balanced by the upward ph. The length is dh. The area of the strip will be A. The area of the strip will be A, right? And E is the Young's modulus of elasticity. E is the Young's modulus of elasticity. So what is the load that is acting on the strip ph? So we know from the Newton's second law, force by mass into acceleration. So we can write this as mh into g. Mass we can write as density into volume. So rho into vh into g, right? Rho into g will become gamma. And volume that is acting at the bottom is area into h, right? So that becomes gamma ah. So if I want to find d delta of the strip, because it is very small length, so d delta strip we can write as ph into dh is the length, a is the cross section area, e is the Young's modulus of elasticity. So this we can write as gamma into a into h into dh upon a into e. So area get cancelled out. Area get cancelled out. So from here we get d delta strip is equal to gamma by e into h dh into h dh. So now this is for the strip. Now if I integrate over the entire length, h varies from 0 to L. At 0 you cannot see any deformation, so it is 0, and top I am writing as delta. So it becomes delta is equal to gamma by E h square by 2 0 to L. So it becomes gamma L square by 2E. So delta you can write as gamma L square upon 2E. That is your delta. Is it clear? So this formula you should be remembering. We'll solving few questions also on this, right? So delta is equal to gamma L square by 2E. Now if I say, if weight of the bar is given and weight of the bar is W, so this W is what? Gamma into V. What is V? Area into length. Yes or no? So what we can write about gamma? We can write gamma as W by A into L. Yes or no? We can write gamma as W by A into L. So if I write gamma is equal to W by A into L, I substitute in the previous formula, what I will be getting? W into L, or bet first we'll write it very clearly. W by AL into L square by 2E. Yes or no? So 1L will cancel out. You will get the formula as WL upon 2AE. So this delta is given by WL by 2AE. Now one thing that I will be very clearing you very properly, that this formula that is WL by 2AE, you are not going to use for any comparison. Not use for any comparison. Why? Because this weight component consists of independent variable. This weight component is not independent. It consists of independent variable. It is dependent on these in your independent variable. Is it clear? Whereas when look at this gamma L square by 2, it is independent. So we'll use this for comparison. ठीक है? हाँ, अगर आपको फॉर्मूला पूछ रहा है टिक करने के लिए, तो आप इन दोनों में से कोई भी फॉर्मूला जैसे क्वेश्चन में गिवन है उसके अनुसार आप टिक कर सकते हो. ठीक है, लेकिन कंपैरिजन वाइज आप WL/2AE को यूज नहीं कर सकते हो. क्यों नहीं कर सकते हो? बिकॉज इट कंसिस्ट ऑफ कंपोनेंट्स विच आर इंडिपेंडेंट ऑन अदर वेरिएबल्स. Is it clear? Is this point clear? Yes? Any doubt in this part? Any doubt in this part? Clear hai? Is it clear? Okay. So last thing that we are going to see today, deformation in conical bar due to self weight. So see here, I am considering a conical bar. Okay, I am considering a conical bar. This conical bar has top area of A and the length of the bar is L. Right? I need to find the deformation. So again here, the load is not constant throughout. So what I need to do, I need to take a strip at a distance h, of length dh. Okay, at length dh, right? So if I take a strip, obviously I'm assuming that the load acting at this strip is constant. So let us say the load is ph. And area at the bottom of the strip is ah. That remain constant throughout. This is the assumption. So what is this load ph? Again, nothing but mass into acceleration, that is mh into g. mh is nothing but rho into vh into g. So what is vh? See, it is a cone. When you cut, it is a cone. So what is a cone? Pi r square into h. So pi r square I am writing as ah. H is h into g. So rho into g is gamma. Gamma into ah into h. Okay. And that too, this pi r square h I am adding because it's 1/3. So because it's not a cylinder, it's a cone. So 1/3 of pi r square h. So writing 1/3 gamma into ah into h. Okay. So now if I talk about d delta strip, what we can write? ph into dh upon ah into e. So ph is what? 1/3 gamma into ah into h into dh upon ah into e. So ah get cancelled out. What you got? 1/3 gamma by e into h dh. Right? So this is d delta strip. Right? Now if I integrate over the entire length, so h varies from 0 to L and delta varies from 0 to delta. So this becomes equal to delta. Here it becomes 1/3 gamma by e. H integral is h square by 2. Put in the limit to become L square by 2. So what is the value? Gamma L square by 6e. So delta is equal to gamma L square by 6e. Is it clear? Now, similar as we discussed above, if weight of the bar is W, that is given as gamma into V. And what is V? 1/3 of A into L. So that is gamma AL by 3. So from here, what we can write? Gamma is equal to 3W by AL. Right? So from here, what we can write? Delta 3W by AL into L square by 6C. So that become WL by 2AE. Okay. So you got this formula. Now if you look at the formula that you got for the rectangular, you can see that there also you have got WL by 2AE. So if someone don't know about the use of this formula, they will say that for the same load or for the same material used, right, what we can say that the deformation in the conical bar and rectangular bar are same due to its weight. But it's not true, because I already told you that W is not an independent variable, right? So if someone asked you what is the ratio of the deformation, so deformation in rectangular bar due to self weight upon deformation in conical bar due to self weight, what we can write? This is gamma L square by 2E, and the bottom it is gamma L square by 6E. So I'm talking about for the same length and for the same material, same density. So what we can see here, gamma L square cancelled out, E cancelled out, 2, 3. So here it is 3. The ratio is 3. So the deformation in the rectangular bar is 3 times that of the deformation in the conical bar due to its self weight. Is it clear? Right? So this will be going in your note. This will be going in your note. So I hope you understood everything that I've taught you till now, right? Please revise all the concepts and come tomorrow. We'll solve the questions on these topics. Right? Any problem you can ask me now itself. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed my session, right? So please like our channel, like the video, subscribe our channel, and involve more and more students so that we get continuously interested in teaching you all and we get self-motivated, right? Okay. Thank you all.